Thank you so much, Martha. This is Stephanie speaking. Hi, everyone. My name is Stefanie Mthimkhulu. I am joining from so-called Providence, Rhode Island. I'm the director of Project Let's, a peer-led mental health org. And I'm really excited today to talk about what is self-care, thinking about the small actions that help our bodies, minds, and spirits feel supported, anything that we do to take care of ourselves, talking about coping tools, simple things that we can use to help during stress. For example, breathing exercises, drinking tea, talking to someone, or using a calming object. And we'll also talk about asking for support. So, letting the people that are in our lives know that we need help, care, or understanding. And I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you, Martha.
Absolutely. So, to start off, when we talk about mental wellness, what does that really mean in everyday life?
So, for a basic understanding of mental wellness, there's lots of different ways that we can think about it. My favorite way of thinking about mental wellness is as balance, feeling balanced, feeling steady. That's really personal, depending on what that looks like for you in your life. And it can look like having balance and steadiness in our emotions, in our mind, having the tools that we need to be able to handle stress or challenges that show up in our day-to-day lives. I also want to just offer some definitions for coping tools. So, those simple things that we can do to help ourselves feel calmer or more in control when we're stressed or overwhelmed, which can really support our mental wellness. And self care in general, those actions that we can take. So that's really like putting the coping tools into practice so that we can support our mental wellness. And when we say support in general, thinking about the help that we get from others. And support looks like different things for different people, whether that's somebody listening, someone offering advice, spending time with someone, or a pet, and being able to get assistance when we need it.
Yeah. I have two cats. I have a Cheeto and a Meatball, and they bring me so much comfort. And I have a daughter who is the light of my life, who really helps me reground. And I know it's so different for my friends and my family, and we all get that sense of wellness from different things. And it's beautiful to see what works for different people. But I'd love to talk to you a bit about when things get stressful or overwhelming. Um, can you give us a couple examples of what has helped you stay grounded or feel more present?
Absolutely. I have a wide range of tools in my toolbox. And important to note is that sometimes something works really well, and other times not so much. So I'm always trying different things, and allowing myself to explore and experiment. Sometimes that might look like having a sensory object or something that's squishy. There's many different images on the screen of different types of grounding tools that we can use. There's a soft looking kitty on the screen. Journaling. I'm someone that has a lot of thoughts that can move very quickly. So I'm always trying to get it out of my head and put it on paper or visualize it in some way. And I think something I think a lot about is growing up in school. There was a lot of focus on giving eye contact and making sure that you look like you're paying attention and not doing other things. And I personally find that drawing or crocheting or knitting, or doing something to occupy my body actually can help me pay attention better, and stay present and stay focused. I might also light a very aromatic or nice smelling candle, or burn some incense. So creating an environment that feels comfortable, and a very soft, fluffy blanket is a go-to for me. I think I have one stationed in every room in my house.
Mm. I'm a hoodie girl myself. Whenever I feel this need to feel cozy, I will just throw on my favorite purple hoodie and just have a little seat in my favorite chair and then just kind of zone out with a good book or some music really helps me de-stress. I wonder if anyone can think of something as we're talking of just what makes them feel de-stressed, what helps them relax and calm down, and think of ways to introduce that into the rest of their day. Um, and people talk a lot about coping skills, but I really do wonder, what does that mean? How do we find ones that actually help us, and how do we get through the hustle and bustle of every day to be able to make space to find coping skills?
Yes, coping skills are a big conversation. Is it okay if I jump into kind of how we're feeling before coping skills?
110%, because you're right. Sometimes it's hard to even know what we're feeling to know what we need to be able to cope. So maybe you can run us through how we can start to figure that out.
Awesome. That is sometimes a really difficult place to begin, but really important. And speaking for myself as a neurodivergent person, I can be feeling lots of different emotions at once. And being asked the question, how are you, can sometimes feel a bit overwhelming. So I want to share two different ways that I take a temperature check of how I'm feeling or what's happening in my mind or my body. So one of those ways is what we call a color zone. And so on the screen, there are four different colored boxes: green, yellow, orange, and red. And they are connected with different feelings. So for green, feeling calm or feeling steady, feeling okay. For yellow, feeling maybe tense or uneasy. For orange, feeling overloaded or overstimulated. And red might signal that we're in danger or in crisis or feeling very overwhelmed. And these are something that we could point to. We could choose a color. We could think about it for a moment. What's a color that matches how we feel? And important to remember that all of these feelings are welcome. We don't have to explain or justify how we're showing up or what's happening for us. And it gives us a way to maybe make sense of what's happening without having to put so many words to it, which can be difficult at times. So, color zones are one thing that I really like to work with. And this is another type of check in question that we could ask ourselves, or two different questions. How is our energy today? And how is our stress today? And again, rather than having to come up with a narrative or a story or an explanation, which we can do and is sometimes really supportive, this is just a quick gauge of, are we low, medium, or high? And on the screen is kind of what looks like a temperature gauge or a meter that goes through green low, yellow medium, and red high. So for myself, for example, I would say that I'm medium energy today and feeling low stress. How about you, Martha?
Oh, right now my energy is high and my stress is medium. And I think it's going to oscillate as we go through this conversation, because I think that it's such an interesting topic, and there are certain things that really hit my heart, and there are other things that kind of hit my mind. And so I actually feel really connected to the colors that you shared, and just thinking about how in the morning I went through kind of all four different colors in the span of half an hour. And so being able to kind of think about that allowed me to reflect a bit and just like, wow, I felt a lot of emotions in a very short window of time. And now I'm going to feel something completely different in the afternoon. So there's some optimism in that for me anyway. And there's some opportunity to kind of think about like this wide burst of feelings that happen, but also how our energy and our stress impacts those. So I think these two put together are really fantastic resources. Uh, I wonder if anyone in the audience is having those moments of reflection as well. And as they're thinking about that, maybe we can pivot now to kind of talking about coping skills and ways to address that realization of stress.
Yes, thank you. So with coping skills, again, I really think about what is in my toolbox. And there's different ways that we can tend to ourselves. So, one of those is a sensory or a body reset. That might look like weighted blankets, a cold washcloth, a deep pressure hug, rocking, or noise canceling headphones. And I often find I have a 6 year old and a 2 year old, and we are all huggers. So when we are feeling big emotions, a weighted blanket or deep pressure, even like a self hug. So giving like myself some pressure can feel really grounding. And I remember as a child, like finding small spaces, like going underneath my desk or a space where there was borders and boundaries that felt safe for my body. So that's kind of in the bucket of a sensory or body reset. Um, and then another area or bucket of tools to think about is a visual grounding. We're going to go through an example in a moment, but that could be looking at waves, looking at leaves, clouds, changing the lighting in our space so that it's softer or a different color. My daughter really loves to have at night one of those galaxy projection
The
that has, yes, the stars all over the ceiling and nighttime and sleep was something that was really difficult for her. And it took a lot of testing. We do the galaxy, we also have a noise machine that has the sound of the ocean and birds coming out. And she gets to choose based on how she's feeling. And we experimented with on the sensory side, right? Probably 3 or 4 different comforters before we found one that was the one that provided that sense of, okay, I can like rest now and close my eyes and feel good in this space. So yeah, I'm wondering if either of those resonate with you, Martha, if you have found coping skills in either of those areas.
Yeah, so weirdly enough, please don't judge, but a space that always helps me reset has been the bathroom. My entire life since I've been a kid, I really enjoyed just the space in there. The alone of it is really, really nice. And as I've gotten older, it's transitioned to my own room because I've been able to make that space feel like my own and put little things that bring me joy, photos up of people that make me happy. I have a little thing set up to play music. So whenever I need to reset, I just have to press a button and it's there for me. So really building in these things into my day and my routine has helped me transition over these different experiences in my life. So I've gone from the bathroom to the bedroom, but being able to incorporate those other forms of sensory grounding have kind of helped pull me out into
Mm.
a bigger space. So that's been really, really helpful for me. And for my kiddo, she's the same. She is a bear hug beast, but she's also very much into trying different things to figure out what works for her. We call her the little Goldilocks because we have to find what's just right. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. You have to try different things to be able to see what works and also know that sometimes something will work once and may not work again, or something may not work once,
Mm.
and then you'll be in a different spot in your life and it'll work all of a sudden. So it's always really nice to have these little cycles of trying, at least in my opinion.
I fully agree. I'm laughing thinking about I love the smell of lavender and personally find it very grounding. And I had prepared all this fresh lavender. I brought some to my mom and I'm like, smell this, mom. Like, she was like, oh, like that's way too strong. And just did not have the reaction that I thought it would. So again, right, just the importance of each person doing that exploration for themselves and knowing like, okay, this does not feel good to me. This is not going to be part of my toolbox. So very personal preferences, especially with smell. Uh, so a couple other types of coping skills I want to uplift are for moments where we are either having a state where we're experiencing low speech. So for myself personally, there are moments where I'm experiencing distress, and that affects my ability to communicate verbally. Even though I am typically a verbal person. And then there are folks who are nonverbal, whether they're in crisis or not. And so that is a primary form of communication all the time at baseline. So having tools, and I'm going to give an example in a moment of communication cards that we can share with friends or partners or loved ones or even our kids to help communicate how we're feeling or what we need, and not pressuring ourselves to use a form of communication in a moment where it's not accessible or not possible for us. So that's been really important for me. And then wanting to uplift this kind of short breath reset. I am a person who's very visual, so I like to have visual cues for myself. And so for me, a short breath reset might look like having my hands going up to kind of signal that I'm going to take a breath in. I'm going to inhale.
I'm gonna try that.
And then when we go down, that'll signal exhaling. So I'll do that again if folks would like to join in. No pressure. We'll go inhale and exhale.
I feel that in my brain.
I really like this exercise because it doesn't require counting. I can find myself sometimes actually getting a little stressed out when I'm counting or trying to remember, did I breathe out more than I inhaled? And again, that might feel really supportive for folks to have a certain number or pattern that they use. So different strategies are great. Another one that we could try is having one hand on our kind of chest area, if that feels comfortable, and one hand on our belly, and just taking a breath in and out. Can do
See,
one
that's
more if that feels
interesting.
good. I think I cut you off, Martha.
Oh
You were
no,
gonna.
I was so into it. I was just thinking this one is very different for me because it makes me aware of other parts of my body. And I just like I have a tender arm right now. And so being forced to kind of use that makes me aware of different feelings in my body that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to. So I almost feel like it was this forced slowdown to be aware of my body, which is interesting and not something that I tend to do when I'm stressed. I really try to be in my head as opposed to my body. And I don't know if it's the same for other people, but it's just kind of how it goes sometimes when stress kind of takes over. So
I really resonate with that. And also can serve as these little signals of, oh, this place might need a little bit of extra love or a little bit of extra attention. That is something I try to reframe for myself when I notice something. Okay, I'm gonna give you some love, maybe a nice warm bath with some
lavender.
salts in there. Yeah, some lavender if that's if that's your smell. Um, thank you for sharing, Martha. Um, this is an example of the cards that I was mentioning. And I know everyone will have access to these as a resource. You can feel free to print them out, use them in your lives. They are roughly the size of an index card. And there are ones that are body feeling. So again, we could share ones that say, I have a heavy chest or shut down. There is an image of a computer that says shutting down. And this is one that I might use when I'm communicating, like, I need space right now. I'm not processing right now. And when I might have be in a more grounded space. Maybe I'm having some conversations with my support people about what it looks like for me to be experiencing that. Um, and so another option is too many thoughts. Um, so these are just some examples of what we could share and how we can use our coping skills. Um, Another really great tool that I use and use with my kids as well is a feeling wheel. Is this something that is familiar to you, Martha?
Yeah, I actually just became aware of it because of this session that we were planning. I looked into this on the slides and was like, oh wow, okay, that's great. Because I didn't used to know fully how it worked. I thought it was just this list of words, but realizing that it actually has a core and then you work your way out really transformed how I engaged with it and allowed me to be more specific because when you have so many thoughts, you tend to have less ability to communicate them sometimes. So it was really grounding for me.
Yes, absolutely. And there is a couple of different ways you can work with a feeling wheel. There, as Martha was saying, right, we are going to start in the middle. And there are two different types on the screen. One has words in the middle with different faces. And one just has hearts that have different types of emotions. So you could kind of match your emotion as best as possible to the hearts on the screen, or you could choose one of the words. So I might choose that I am happy as a kind of base emotion, and then you're going to go out from there and you can get more specific about what you're feeling. So I'm feeling grateful and excited. And if I used the one that starts with the heart emojis, I might go to feeling cheerful and feeling blissful. So really getting the opportunity to see exactly where I might be living on this emotion spectrum and have the opportunity to choose some words that I might not have thought of about how I'm feeling or what type of support or self-care strategies might be useful for me.
That's great. When I'm looking at this wheel, I right now, from this morning, I'm feeling loved and I'm feeling very secure because I'm surrounded by a lot of really great people and I'm very lucky. So I don't want to take that for granted. So I'm just going to use this moment to thank everyone for being here, participating, and creating this space for mental wellness. So I hope you all feel a little bit loved too.
And thank you, Martha, for wonderfully modeling how we can take action from once we identify how we're feeling, right? Martha's feeling grateful, and that led to saying thank you to everyone and acting on that. So appreciate that modeling in real time, Martha. Um, Okay, I'm gonna go back for a second and just share what's going to come on the screen is a roughly 30-second visual. You're going to see some waves that are moving along your screen, if that is accessible to you. And if not, it'll last about 30 seconds. And it is an example, as we shared earlier, of one of those visual grounding tools. I encourage y'all to engage as you'd like. If you want to close your eyes and imagine that you are toes in the sand on a beach, feel free to do so. Or you can just watch if that's accessible and see what comes up for you. So I'm going to put that on the slide.
I'm an Aquarius, so water makes me happy.
So. Just inviting folks to reflect for a moment on how that was for you. I know for me, I'm thinking about memories with loved ones and moments where I was near the water and how supportive water is as a tool when I'm feeling overwhelmed to stand in front of this like giant ocean and feel really tiny has always been a source of grounding for me. How is that for you, my Aquarius?
I found myself thinking about the sounds of the beach, not so much the actual water part of it. And that surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. So that was really good. And I found myself thinking back to a day that I went to the beach for a very short second. And then I was like, oh, it's been 30 seconds. That was really quick. So wow, that was great. I really love that. Thank you, Stefan.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of my favorites as well because it takes 30 seconds. And if it's something that you enjoy, you can really see the shift in what happens in 30 seconds. We're maybe imagining birds playing, we're going through memories or feeling sand in our toes. So it can be a really powerful grounding tool that I love to work with. Um, and a couple of others that I can share. One of my personal favorites is trying something sour, right? Working with our body, and that kind of sensory piece. I know we've mentioned sensory tools a few times today. To be really clear, sensory meaning anything that has to do with our senses. So, what we hear or see or smell or what we feel on our skin. It's thinking about how our body is taking in information from the world around us. So if I'm finding that I'm having a lot of thoughts or my mind is moving too fast, I like to have a sour candy that's like, whoa, it forces me to focus on how deeply unpleasant that experience is. And it really shifts my attention from what's happening up here to, now we've got this whole process going on where it tastes sour. And a couple of other ways that we can kind of activate those senses. We've mentioned that deep pressure, right? Repetitive movement is something that's helpful for a lot of folks, whether that is dancing or tapping or rocking. There are a lot of different movements that we can make, even if we use both hands and just kind of tap on our chest. There are benefits to us and our nervous systems to movement in all different types of ways. We talked a little bit about temperature regulation, so maybe taking a cold washcloth and putting it on your neck or having a warm drink, and anything that feels structured or patterned, like our breathing exercises we did earlier. Do any of these resonate with you, Martha?
Yeah, I am a big repetitive movement person. I find that I will start tapping my fingers on things or I will play with my hair as some type of calming thing. I like to the back of my hair is just a little bit prickly, and so that kind of just that sensation reminds me to kind of reconnect. So I enjoy that, and I love sour flavors myself. So that one is more of just a comfort as opposed to a reset for me. But I'm sure for other people, a bite out of the lemon would be really great for a reset. But it's so interesting also to think about going against the expectation. Usually, I myself love a good snack when I'm feeling stressed, but to try something different and unexpected, I like that. I think it pushes you just a little bit into something different and gets your brain going. That's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of getting your brain going, sometimes the way that our stress might show up, it might feel more supportive to focus on what's happening in our mind. I know for me, something that I've learned about myself when I wake up first thing in the morning, I like to make a list of the three like most important things that I need to get done in the day. I write them down physically so that it's not hovering in my mind and I can see it down on paper. So that's kind of a list making strategy. And when we're talking about the mind or anything, we might see the word cognitive coming up, right? Cognitive is really thinking about anything that has to do with our understanding, our thinking, how we process something, really how our brain is processing information. So that can be through, we can find soothing through predictable routines. Or even having different scripts that we either read to ourselves or share with ourselves around what's happening or how we make sense of things. I know there are a couple of different mantras that I have that work really well to support me in difficult moments. Is any of this in your toolbox, Martha?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I am an old school list maker. I have notebooks on notebooks full of lists of things, and there is something so, I'm trying to think of the word in that feeling wheel. There's something so awesome. I was just gonna say awesome about being able to check off a box. It gives me that sense of control that I feel when I feel stressed, anxious, out of sorts. Like I'm able to do something. And sometimes I cheat and I put things that I actually have already done on the list to kind of build that momentum. So it's like I woke up this morning, check. I I went and I put some socks on, check, because I'm caring for myself in those little ways. And so it's just these little things that help me build up through the day of just I've actually done more than I thought I did. And it's really reassuring. Yeah, this makes me want to just pivot for 1 second and let everyone know that we actually put together a really awesome pack of resources that we're going to share with you later today that has tips for this, ideas for scripts. You'll have access to the feelings wheel, the communication cards, and a bunch of other really great things. So look forward to sending you those, and we look forward to your feedback on them.
Thanks, Martha. Um, I just want to wrap up on our coping skills, thinking about what is accessible, what is available to us. We talked a lot about this. You were mentioning, having your kind of head rubbed, right? There are things that don't cost money that we can do at any time, that we have access to in our spaces. And it's important to have those in our toolbox or things that are in nature. So, a couple different examples could be sitting in sunlight near a window, lighting a candle, holding a sacred object. I have a few stones that are I've sourced and collected from different places. Here's one that I keep with me. They're nice and cool, so if I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, I can hold it to kind of get that like sensory support. And also, it has a lot of meaning. So you might just find me like this, and there's a nice stone in there. Um, Steaming is something we can do in our shower, or even we mentioned our trusty lavender, rosemary in some boiling water, and just breathing in the air that has this really nice smell to it. There might be prayers or blessings from our cultural traditions, or making family recipes. There's an image on the screen of someone probably in the middle of scrapbooking some photos. So activities that involve images, crafting. These are things that can occupy our hands, our minds, our hearts, our attention. And I find a lot of value in thinking about what's on my accessible menu.
That's just fantastic, Stephanie. I love all of those. We put together a pretty extensive list of free options. We call them the free care menu, and that will be one of the resources available to kind of inspire thought. I'm excited to see what resonates with people for that list too. But these are all just really great starting off ideas. One thing I want to talk about while we have time, and this is just something to kind of pivot and address, is how asking for help can be tough. I'm wondering if we could talk a bit about why it feels so hard sometimes.
Thank you for this question, Martha. It's a really big conversation. I think it's personal for everyone, but there's lots of different barriers that can show up. There could be a lack of communication accessibility. So folks are not able to access information about how we're feeling if we don't have the tools in place to do so. We might be worried about being misunderstood or have experiences in the past where we've tried to share and maybe it didn't go so well, or there was something that was lost in communication. And so we might have those fears. We talked a little bit about money or feeling, that there are barriers to accessing support or even self-care or coping tools, but hoping that we've kind of illuminated some different options on this free care menu that we can choose from. And then not knowing what can help, I think, is a really, really big one that has shown up for me throughout my life of just kind of feeling generally overwhelmed and not knowing what to do with that, right? And so being able to look at a feelings wheel, for example, and identify, okay, I thought that I was angry, but actually I'm sad or I'm feeling grief about something. And being able to kind of use that as a roadmap can be supportive as a pathway out. We might be afraid that things could get worse, or it could be hard to find peers and community, and knowing who to talk to, if we have or don't have maybe peers who we think could be on the same page or understand some of our stresses. So those are some of the main barriers that I can think of. I'm wondering if any of these have shown up for you, Martha.
Definitely. I think all of these, and I think that a lot of people can say the same. One thing that's always been really hard for me is like the vulnerability part of it. Like, I think that sometimes you don't want to feel like a burden to the people around you. And so you kind of keep it in because you want to show how strong you are and how tough you can be. And so I had this moment a couple of years ago where I realized that in order to take care of others, I have to take care of myself. And it's an act of pride to ask for help. It's an act of community to ask for help because you're trusting people, and not everyone will be able to meet you where you need, but someone will. And you just have to put forward because the worst someone can say is no. And then you can move on to your next best option. And so that really helped me and has allowed me to build my set of peers in my community because I trust them, and because I trust them, they trust me, and we're able to build our relationships more. So that was my
No, I really appreciate that. And I think a lot about even on a simple level, I think many of us were grew up with different levels of being told, right, don't cry or don't show emotions or don't show too many emotions. And so there is that built in of that vulnerability piece that you mentioned of many of us are working through becoming comfortable acknowledging to ourselves that we're not okay or that we're not feeling okay in a moment, and that that's not a reflection of who we are as people or our worth or our value, but rather a sign, like as we mentioned earlier with mental wellness, that something's out of balance and something that we want to tend to, right? Like when our little check engine light comes on in a car, we love our car. It's just giving us a signal that, hey, we need to check something out, because something is not, in the best shape that it could be.
I'm gonna snap for that. I love that. Great. And I'm sure everybody on this call has different things, multiple things, one thing that feels primary to them. But being able to have those conversations with the people closest to you or finding the resources that are out there will help. And there are a lot of really great people out there doing a lot of really great work. Going on with it. So I would like to talk a bit about moving past these barriers and the concept of a self-care plan. Can you talk to me a bit about what that is and what that looks like in real life?
Absolutely. Like we've been mentioning throughout our time together, there's lots of different ways to make a plan or different toolkits or templates that you might have come across. I really like to keep it simple, and have a kind of small and predictable ritual that I know that I can engage with. I think that's one thing I think about is not setting myself up with something that's too big or too many expectations. Like, I'm gonna go run 5 miles and go for a hike and do all of these things. I know personally, as a person with chronic illness, I'm probably not going to be doing a hike this week, though I might like to. So, what is realistic and what we are capable of? Thinking about that and starting small, for me is really important. So, if I'm thinking about a self-care plan, I'm starting with some type of daily check-in. Like we mentioned earlier, that could be picking out our color zone. That could be going through our low, medium, high. Um, and this might be something that, as Martha said, I went through all the colors this morning. Maybe we want to check in at a couple different points throughout the day. I have done a daily check in where maybe I've set timers on my phone, and when it goes off, I'll spend 1 minute just journaling about whatever's going through my mind. If I'm really stressed, I'm going to journal that. Or if I'm really grateful for, a message that I just got from a loved one, I'll make a note of that. And again, just kind of allowing things to get filtered through and not get stuck. That could also be choosing one emoji. So keeping it simple is always welcome. Then I build in a 1 minute reset. So this is something that 1 minute might feel small for you. It could be a 5 minute reset, a 10 minute reset. You are welcome to adjust this as it feels good to you. Some of those options might include I'm going to do a deep pressure, a hug for myself for 1 minute. Or I'm going to go to the bathroom and splash my face with some cold water. Look at some calming images of maybe some, adorable little pandas or tiny little bunnies jumping through a field. If we're a person that responds to that, that can just kind of fill us up with like a positive emotion and be supportive in a moment. Um, or breathing with a visual cue. So we talked earlier, right, about the kind of rising and falling. So those can be part of our 1 minute reset. Um, and then the last thing on my kind of simple self-care plan would be having a support option listed. So again, this could be choose one or have a few. We could have the name of a friend, or maybe we have a peer support group that we go to once a week on Tuesdays, and we have the email address for a person in that group. Or our support option is I will use the body communication cards and share those if I need to communicate with someone how I'm feeling, or an AAC shortcut for please check in later. So those are my three main ingredients of a daily check-in to kind of self-assess. How am I doing? Where am I at? Having the opportunity to do a reset or actually engage in a practice that can shift my energy or how I'm feeling in a moment. And then having support options in place if I want to reach out, or I tried my check in, I tried my reset, and I'm still not feeling well. What can I do from there? I can use my support people. So that is a little bit of an overview of how we could think about a self-care plan.
Great. And then how can you tell if a self-care plan is working? Like what kind of signs or feelings should we look for?
I think this is a really great question. I want to just go back to this one slide that I jumped through earlier, which I think is a good example of, when we have a self-care plan that's working, we are going to feel um, in a way that is our baseline, right? And everyone's baseline is going to be different. So on the screen is an example of a personal example of when I'm thriving, I got this. That's like when my self-care plan's working, right? I feel creative. I feel excited to participate in my activities. I think an example for me, I had a Spanish class that I was taking. And when my self care plan is working and things are well, I feel really excited to attend that class. And when my self care plan is not working or I'm not feeling as well, I get stressed to attend that class.
Mhm.
About an hour before, I start feeling like, oh, my stomach hurts. I'm not sure if I want to go. I might notice that I might feel a little sweaty or be running hotter than usual. Or I might be, having more emotions. I might feel like my thoughts are going too fast, or I might be crying, noticing that I'm crying more than usual. So I think for everyone, it's different. There can be different signals in your energy levels, there could be signals in your stress levels. For some people, they feel really tired when their self-care plan is not working. Or other people feel like I have a lot of, thoughts that are just moving rapidly. So whatever those signals are, having that understanding of what it looks like for us when we're doing well, when we're fully able to show up and feel joy, feel connected to others, feel excited to participate in spaces. Those are some signals for me that I know, okay, my self-care plan is working. I can get through the day and it's not feeling like I'm climbing up a mountain.
Wow. Wow. That's really great. I love the idea of having this template, being able to define these for myself and being able to just be like, all right, I'm kind of just surviving right now. What can I adjust? Because uh, there's a bunch of different options that you can cycle in and cycle through to get yourself back to thriving, or at least somewhere in a happy middle that feels manageable. And then you can work on getting yourself to that thriving level because sometimes authenticity requires us to be exactly who we are, where we are, and feeling what we feel. And there is so much value in that because when we're real with ourselves, we're able to make sure we know ourselves and we are our best advocates in asking for help and for care. And I'm blown away by this reset, this plan for self-care and this ability to break it down into steps. So thank you, Stephanie, for sharing this. I think it's super helpful. We will make sure this is available for everyone so they can kind of customize it themselves and make something and build something that is unique and wonderfully them. And with that, I'd love to pivot perhaps in the next couple minutes to just taking some Q&A from the audience if they have any questions that they want Stephanie to address.
All right. So again, we'll be shifting into our Q&A portion now. You may add questions by using the Q&A button, and you may do so anonymously if you'd like. I'll also group similar questions to keep us moving. Let's start with one here. Stephanie, what is this is on boundary language. So what is a kind script to say, I can't do this today, to family or at work without over explaining?
This is a really great question, and I appreciate it a lot. And I take this very personally as somebody with chronic illness that fluctuates, and different people have different responses to that. Um, I will say one, it's important to know who you're talking to, right? If we know that we are dealing maybe with family members that maybe have not been the most understanding. We maybe we want to use different language than we would use with our friends. So I might say, um, if I was dealing with something like sensory overwhelm and I was not confident that the space would understand, I might say that I had a migraine or that I had a really bad headache, right? Because I think that's a language that a lot of people can understand of, oh, that would be really disruptive. We want to, offer care and support to that person. There are, people or spaces or relationships where I know that I have the space to say, I'm really overwhelmed sensory wise. I can show up, but I'm going to need to keep my camera off today. Or, getting to a place where, it might be our own barrier that we are feeling a little bit of difficulty with just being able to say, I won't have my camera on today, thank you. And then we might be, worried of, oh, what does someone think of me? Do they think I don't want to be in this space? Right. So we might have to kind of tend to our own worries about what that means to say, I can't today, and kind of let that sit and know that we can't fully control what others think or how they understand that. But wanting to really honor that we don't owe anybody the details of our experiences. We don't owe folks, this long story of all the things that we've been through or that's happened to us, and we might feel that pressure to justify it. But it is enough to say, this is my access need, this is what I need, or what I can't do, and be able to have those access needs honored and respected.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was incredibly insightful. I have another one here for you, and this is sort of coming from a ally or a friend or a caretaker. What's helpful to say or do on someone's tough day, and what should we avoid?
Thank you for the question. We all have different difficulties in terms of um, what might be challenging about engaging with self-care. So I want to just kind of zoom out big picture and just name that for self taking care of ourselves and what that looks like, our mental wellness, mental health is both an individual and collective responsibility. We can do all of the right things and use all of the tools, and we still deal with stresses or disability or chronic illness, right? So there are going to be things where the coping tools can maybe offer relief, but maybe they're not completely solving the problem, right? Because there are lots of different layers there. And we're in relationship with other people as well, which is part of this question, right? So I think one thing is recognizing how we are in relationship with each other and the impact that we, have on and with each other, is really important. So if we can help others with tasks, maybe that is really supportive. Maybe someone doesn't want to talk about what's happened, right? I think there is a big expectation that when somebody is either stressed or not feeling well, that we have that story, right? This is why I'm not feeling well, and this is what happened. And at 10 a.m. on Tuesday last week, someone said this and it made me feel this way, right? And maybe we have that story, but I think for me personally, I can get overwhelmed by maybe if I don't look like I'm feeling well, my partner just looks at me and says, what's going on, right? What's wrong? And for me, I'm like, where do I even begin? Which thought do I pick out? So I think my partner has learned maybe when he sees that stress on my face to start with, do you want a hug? And so starting from that place. And it's not, a prescription that we can give to anyone. It's going to be different. Some folks might really like having that question be asked of, hey, I'm noticing that, you seem a little upset. Is something going on for you? And so I think one thing from the side of receiving support is trying to remember that people are not mind readers, and to the best of our ability, giving those hints or being able to share what we want, what brings us comfort, and the things that maybe don't feel so supportive, so that people we're in relationship with have those clues and strategies to provide support that feels best to us and nourishes us.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I just want to note we are at the end of our workshop time together. And as we wrap up, I would love just to end with one thing that you hope everyone here remembers about taking care of their mental wellness.
Oh, thank you so much, Martha. I think the one piece that I want to offer is that we can start small and we all have access to something that can bring us comfort, grounding, or joy, and to give ourselves the space to explore and experiment, and see what we like to work with, and to really give ourselves grace through this process. This is a lifelong journey, of self-care and taking care of each other. And just want to extend gratitude to you, Martha, and everyone at Ability Central, including our interpreters. Much gratitude, and I hope folks were enjoying this space and found some tools and strategies that you'd like to try and test out.
Thank you, Stephanie. You are absolutely incredible. It's been such a joy talking with you. So everyone, this is the end of our time together. This was the second in a series of workshops. Our next one is coming up in February called Reclaiming Beauty. We'll send out information about that as well as access to the resources that were mentioned here today. We look forward to sharing community with you in the future. May the rest of your year be fantastic and take care and be well.